welcome to the Center and the Saint. I'm Alyssa Bell.
And I'm Allison Kane.
Good news. We have no idea what's going to happen today because today is a gangster rap kind of day.
Yes, I did get the text as I was getting ready. A warning text.
Hey girl, it's going to be a gangster rap kind of day. You have been warned. And then we showed up to the podcast studio to find 2 bottles of Dewar's on our table. Not intended for us, but no. I feel like it might be a sign.
If I drank scotch, we might have it open.
Yeah, maybe that's why they left scotch, because they knew we wouldn't touch it.
I knew we wouldn't. I'm going to smell it.
Oh, gosh.
Oh,
let me smell. That's not bad.
I mean, it is 12-year scotch.
Hey, maybe I should start drinking scotch. Anyway, you know what the theme of my life has been lately?
Give it to me.
Chaos. Chaos. Literally, we just talked about the fact that a couple years ago, maybe a year and a half ago, Allison looked at me and said, I just feel like every time we're together, I have so much stuff, and it's just all about me and my stuff. And I reminded her at that time, hey girl, it was my turn before this, so now it's just your turn. So we just decided that today, it's my turn again.
It's Melissa's turn again. Tag, she's it.
I'm it. I have all the chaos. I have all the confusion. But here's a pattern that I noticed. Okay, first of all, y'all, if you've been here for a while, you know that I love some gangster rap because it kind of like helps me get my armor on. I know there's an armor of God, but there's also an armor of gangster rap, okay? Just hear me out for a second.
We're going to stick with it.
Right. Okay. But I have not had to turn on gangster rap in so long because of the armor of God, right?
Mm-hmm.
However, today was a gangster rap day. And it soothed me because it helped me express rage that I cannot otherwise express without catching a felony.
There you go. That's important.
Right. So we decided that gangster rap was better than illicit drugs or violence.
Or scotch.
Or scotch. If it was bourbon, we might be talking a different story. Or some sangria.
Right.
But here's the thing. A pattern in my life recently has been me, believe it or not, making excuses or turning a blind eye to behavior that is unacceptable.
Hmm.
And I don't mean, well, some of it is not legal, but I mean making excuses for maybe someone that's always been that way.
Mm-hmm. Their behavior.
Yeah. Without giving away too much information, I had to console my son today on my way out. His feelings were very hurt by something that was said to him. And I said, buddy, I know that sucks, but is it true? No, it's not true, Mom. Okay, well then you don't have to accept that. Just move on. However, a few seconds later, I went, no. It's okay to confront that person.
Right. And
tell them, this is not okay. I don't care if you've always been that way. We're going to stop it right now.
It's interesting. I mean, if somebody had hit him, you would certainly have said, okay, let's go have a conversation about that.
Right.
Let's sit down and talk this through. This is not okay. But I feel like so often with words and actions, not like hitting actions, but words and deeds, I should say, that we can easily take the love your neighbor and all of that to a different level where we just overlook it, cross over it.
Is whitewashing
what you would call it? Is good. Yeah.
Yeah. You just water it down a little bit.
We make the mistake. It's okay. So this is so interesting because I had this realization about myself as well. Last week when I was sitting with the Lord, and it was the Psalms, and I was in Psalm 5 or something, and Psalm 5, and it said, there's always this rhythm of the Psalms, but I get to verse 10, and David is writing this because of enemies who were spreading lies about him. So again, we're back to words. They weren't beating him up, but words. And he's like, pile the guilt on them, God. Let their so-called wisdom wreck them. Kick them out. They've had their chance. It's these people suck, kick them out of the kingdom of God. But then he's like, but you'll welcome us with open arms. Okay. It's like, but love me, take me in. Anyway, I realized that I don't often pray so boldly. I don't know if it's bold or if it's kind of mean or honest.
I think it's honest.
It's honest about enemies or situations that are frustrating, bad situations. I mean, I pray for like protection and defense, but I don't always throw in words about my disdain or anger. And I was like, why? Why don't I do that? Like, I mean, I'm surely I think them, but in a prayer to God, I'm not very specific with that. And I think it's because, like maybe you, and correct me if I'm wrong, we were making the mistake that when we consider love, that we're called to love our neighbors as ourselves, turn the other cheek, as just kindness or gentleness. But God shows us, and David too in these Psalms, that love is big and strong enough, God's love, to be both gentle and a great defense and shield. And David knows this. I mean, he just proves it over and over again with his very real, raw honesty and prayers. I mean, God's love isn't either or. It's both. And I need to pray like that. Like, I can put it all out there.
Yeah, and I think, like, we could learn to live like that. And I think we're in a different time in the world right now where people are starting to be comfortable. Just like, whoa, hold up. Yeah. That might be the way it used to be, but
that's not acceptable.
We don't do business like that.
Right.
Right? And so I think it is a good reminder that, honestly, if you love somebody well enough, and not saying that I don't love my son, but I should love that person enough to go, hey, actually, let me call this out in you.
Yes. Right.
Which, by the way, we did. Which is why it was late. Because I was like, hold up. Actually, I told my son, I said, buddy, this is not okay.
Right.
And I marched out to where I was and confronted, and then brought William in, and we had a good conversation.
And hopefully both parties will remember that in the ways that they're supposed to. Your son, in that I'm going to remember that I can stand up for myself.
Yeah.
I do have the right to say, this is not okay. This hurts my feelings.
Yeah.
And to offer the other person, whoever that may be, a chance to explain themselves and to hear your side of the story.
Yeah. And I mean, he was very apologetic. He's like, what? And, it's like, okay, I don't know how much of that was really genuine. Like, what? I didn't say that. Or it was like, oh, crap.
I'm busted.
Yeah.
And I guess you never know, but I have no doubt that they will remember that, because it's when we let people get away with that verbal abuse almost and the putting down that they just keep doing it.
Oh, getting away with it brings another story to mind.
Ooh.
Yet another situation. Standing on solid ground and standing up for your truth and morals and what is right.
Yeah.
I will say that while the world can taint anything and warp anything into something bad, there's something so good about the people that feel bold enough to stand up for what is right and or speak, because I think our generation started that.
Yes.
But the next generation, they are putting an exclamation point.
Yeah. So true. And as we've spoken about before, there's certain ways and situations, there's certain appropriate places and things like that. You don't just have an outburst. It's not as effective, but certainly worth calling out.
Yeah. And so I'm really proud of people that will call it out, and I need to do better. So
I do think that taking it to God first, like David does, is a grounding. It grounds us in those situations before we just run into them with hands,
guns a-blazing, baby. Yeah. So let's talk about that. What does that process look like? So if you are facing a situation where the truth needs to be said. How do we do it? Gracefully and lovingly, however, not weakly. Like strong. Like, what's the process for us to get in a good place to share that truth? Maybe with the rhythm that you're talking about?
Yeah. Well, I think if we go back to what David does in Psalms, I think we start with God, right? And if you look at the Psalms and each one individually, so often there's this pattern, this rhythm to it, where they start out where it's almost like a crying out or a turning to God. Like this says in Psalm 77, I yell out to my God. I yell with all my might. I yell at the top of my lungs, and he listens. So many of the Psalms start out that way. It's like, I'm calling out to you, God. Hear me, oh God. And then so quickly it'll turn to the complaining.
I feel that.
Rainy complaining. So it's like, like here's an example. How long, Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long will I store up anxious concerns within me? Agony in my mind every day. How long will my enemy dominate me? It's like, wham, wham, wham. Like, how much longer? Can anybody relate to that? Like, me. I remember saying to the Lord one time during a really long, it felt like a forever trial. It's like, oh, okay, God, this was my prayer. I know that everyone says that you always show up. It's usually at the last minute, but you always show up. And I'm telling you right now that it's the last minute.
Do you hear that clock ticking, buddy?
And I'm sure he's like, oh my gosh, Allison, you're cracking me up.
And don't you wish it was the last minute,
yeah,
girlfriend?
Don't you wish, honey? We ain't even close.
Aren't you glad he's not like us? Oh, did you mention it again? Add 5 more minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And then there is this space for request. So there's some complaining, like getting it all out, getting it off your chest. So there's the acknowledgement of God, and then just kind of the complaining part is what I call it. And then the request, like asking God, like, consider me and answer me, Lord my God. This is from Psalm 13. Restore brightness to my eyes. Like, what are you looking for? What do you need? What do I need from you, God? And it's, of course, God already knows, but I think it's so important for us to say those things out loud and to think about them. Like, I need your protection. I need your guidance. I need your wisdom. Like, I can't do this by myself. Like, give me your light. Shine a light on my path.
Well, and I think, like you're saying, when you start to speak your requests out and you give words to them,
yes,
it actually helps you define more what your needs are. And then normally in the defining, you kind of find the root.
Yes.
But you'll never find it if you just, kind of whitewash it.
Exactly.
I'm not sure if whitewash is the right term. But.
Yes. I mean, I think it's like sugarcoat.
Sugarcoat.
We sugarcoat it. And then if you look at the Psalms, at the end, there's always this sort of, this doubling back to a remembrance. It's almost like, if you have a board with prayer requests and praises, you're going back to you've been in your prayer request section, but you end in the praises section, and this remembering of your trust in God and his faithfulness and how he's shown up in the past and how you're going to continue to celebrate that. Like, this verse says, but I have trusted in your faithful love, and my heart will rejoice in your deliverance. I've thrown myself headlong into your arms. I'm celebrating your rescue. Like, it obviously hasn't happened yet, but he's saying, I'm celebrating it. I'm singing at the top of my lungs. I'm so full of answered prayers. And so there's this beautiful cycle that we see in the Psalms. And I think I actually tried this with myself. And I just journaled. I sort of started, and then I wrote down what kind of my complaints.
Yeah.
And I felt like at first, I felt like a little whiny kid.
But
in all honesty,
when you were saying that and you were kind of defining the process, I kind of felt that the legalism of people is going to shame you for that. They're going to put you down. They're going to say, ye of little faith. They're going to say, how dare you, expect more from God when you deserve nothing. You know what I mean?
But I think that's the beauty of the Psalms, because you get it all out, but then you circle back to the remembrance, like, but I do trust you. You have shown up in my life. I know this is temporary. And that's where I got at the end. It's like, even though I have no idea when you're going to answer all my requests, I know with all my heart, I wrote this, that you've heard it and you love me. And there's a reason and a purpose in this season of trusting and just celebrating that. But it was awesome. And I will admit, a little hard to do that complaining part. And I wasn't even saying bad things about other people, like in this one, like, pile on the guilt, God, like, those suckers deserve it. Let their so-called wisdom wreck them, kick them out. I mean, I was like, wow, can you say that to God about other people?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. The legalism that's in the local churches is going to say no, but the Bible proves us otherwise.
Right, as long as we don't stay there.
Correct.
And I think that's the key, right? So he gets it off his chest. And God already knows we feel that way, but we feel like we have to come all buttoned up. And I thought that I had sort of overcome that in my prayers and my conversations with God. But this just shined a brighter light on it. Like, maybe you still need to dig a little deeper with, maybe it's good that I don't have that much anger and hatred for someone right now.
Right.
That could come. He definitely had a reason.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was interesting. And I think that is how we circle back into your question that you asked, and how do we approach those people? So if we've put it all out with God.
Put it all out with God first. Okay.
Then we have gone through the emotions, and he's probably given us some insight. He's calmed us down, thrown a little cold water. We've put a little space between us and the situation so that we can go back into it.
And then what?
And then it is still hopefully out of love that it's not quite this how we look at love, but it's out of love that we go back and tell the person that's not okay. It's love for yourself and love for the other person if you want to keep them in your life, right? And so it's like, that's not okay. That hurt my feelings. This is how I feel. This is what I heard, and have the conversation. Now, if that continues to go on and on and on, that's a whole nother story.
Yeah,
At some point, you have to make another choice.
Yes. First of all, you've addressed it, but now you get to follow up with that. Mm-hmm. Because if you bring it to light, and then that person chooses not to change their behavior, then you have another decision to make.
Right.
Is it?
And that depends on what kind of relationship it is, right? Mm-hmm. If it's your spouse, you gotta really work on that. Like, you don't just be like, well, I've given you 3 tries, you're out.
That's right.
Bye. If it's if it's a coworker, if it's every relationship has different circumstances,
different dynamics, yes. Exactly. And then probably go in realizing that there's a chance that they're not going to take this lovingly, or as kindness, or as love, or as a good truth, and so be prepared for that. You can't change them. That's correct.
We can pray.
That's right.
And then you can write another complainy section,
right?
About why won't anybody listen to me?
It's hard. Relationships are hard, and standing up for truth is hard. And I think it was surprising to me, for someone that tends to be so bold about stuff, mm-hmm. to realize that there are certain areas, we all have pockets.
Yes.
Right? So, no more excuses, people.
Yeah, we need to be like David. He prayed with such confidence that God would not only comfort and support him, but also shelter and defend him, even though he was being super raw and a little ugly and mean, and in his words about the other people.
I love that you said God will defend him, because God will defend us.
He will.
And sometimes you have to have a hard conversation with somebody, and you're not going to get a resolution that moment. You have to walk away. Your goal is to walk away confidently, knowing that you did not get over emotional.
Right.
And that you came from a firm foundation of truth and love. And then what they do with that is on them.
Yeah.
And then my prayer is always like, God, open their eyes.
That's right.
Hey, God, convict that heart, And I have prayed that before, and then I felt really bad that I was actually saying, God, convict them about that. I'm like, who am I? Just like you were saying.
Right. It feels like, but we all need, I'm sure people are praying that for me, and I do need to be convicted too about things, in my heart. And so we all need that prayer prayed for us, honestly.
Yeah, and generally I followed up with, and also if there's something else about me that I need to look at.
Yeah, I know. But can I just have a week off? Because I've been working really hard and I'm tired.
I'm so tired.
There's so much work to do in here.
Yeah.
So maybe this week, try it. Sit down with the Lord and cry out to him, yell out to him, scream out to him, whisper to him. How are you feeling? It just depends on the day. Maybe you're so exhausted, all you got is a whimper.
Yeah.
Like, God, I can barely get your name out, but I'm turning to you. I'm calling on, please hear me. Just acknowledge him. And then, lay out your complaints. Like, when are you going to answer this prayer? Why can't I see you at work in this situation? Whatever it is. Why won't this person hear me? Whatever. And then ask him for what you want.
That's the hard part, is asking for what you want. Yeah.
Yes.
And I've heard people say, I don't really want a journal because I don't want record. Girl, that's what fire pits are for.
There you go.
Have at it, and that'll light it up.
Exactly. But then always make sure you circle back to the trusting portion, where you go back and you remember the trust. Like I said, the prayer request and the praises. Go back and remember and rejoice, and that he has shown up for you. He will show up for you. He is showing up for you. It just doesn't always look the way we want it to at the time, and it doesn't happen on our timeline, and we can get a little impatient.
And sometimes you gotta listen to a little gangster rap.
There you go.
Just to get the feelings out.
Maybe. That's not my go-to.
I know.
But whatever it is for you that's, legal and not addictive.
And not self-destructive.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Those are all the parameters today.
So we'll put a checklist out there for you.
There you go.
Well, thanks for joining us this week on The Sinner and the Saint.